It wouldn't be an NFL weekend if we didn't cater to our section of the YouTube audience that is Miami Dolphin fans. So yes, we are going to be talking about the Miami Dolphins traveling into Baltimore, 3.5-point underdogs. Both of these teams are 1-0. Both of these teams beat AFC East teams. The Ravens went over the Jets in week 1, easy game for them. Quick work by Lamar Jackson and company. The Dolphins had to do it over Bill Belichick in a game that they played multiple times over the years. Bill Belichick and the Patriots losing in Miami. Kyle and I, in the offseason, we broke down the Miami Dolphins and their expectations coming into the year. And I highlighted this game very early on for them. I mentioned this is the game that would tell you everything you need to know about the 2022 Dolphins and whether or not they were going to be a true playoff contender, whether or not they were going to potentially even make some noise this season or not. If they go into this game and look bad, then I think that will assure anyone that thought that the Dolphins were going to be mediocre this year, as they tend to do, or at least recent history suggests the Dolphins tend to do. However, if you start off 2-0 and one of those wins is against a team that people are high on in Baltimore, that really changes the expectations for the season. What do you think of this matchup? Kyle, Blake, anyone can go for it.
All right, 2-0. I got you. I'm interested in the Dolphins because last week their defense dominated the Patriots, who we realized once again have a bottom 10 defense in the NFL. And I think Mac Jones got hurt in that game, so it changed the math a little bit. But Dolphins defense looks great, which is interesting because usually we say defenses can't replicate year to year in the NFL, or at least it's more wildly sporadic. The Dolphins have had a pretty consistently great defense for like 4 years now, it feels like, which is really a sight to behold because that usually doesn't happen in the NFL nonetheless to shitty teams like the Dolphins that haven't won a playoff game in 22 years and counting now. I was interested in that performance. Dolphins offense looked pedestrian. Tyreek Hill looked good. He helped my fantasy team a good bit, but Tyreek Hill getting catches in the flat and being fast is something that we knew he could do. I know some people were like afraid of whether or not it would translate to Miami. I think the 8 catches, 80 yards, empty stats, Tyreek Hill is always going to be there. It's just the Tyreek Hill that's a playmaker like we saw in Kansas City that was going to be what people were thinking about. And, I agree with Juju that this is a big matchup. I will never say that there's like one game that will make or break anyone's schedule because one game is just too small of a sample size.
Well, again, remember the reason I say that is because the rest of their schedule, at least the rest of their early season schedule, is pretty favorable. This is like one of their truest tests in the early part of the season. Aside from the game against the Bills. After week four, it gets a whole lot easier for Miami. It's just like the first 4 weeks, I think, are really difficult for them. Because we expect them to lose to the Bills. The Bills, I want to say, is their week 4 matchup. But even if they lose that matchup, if you win this one, I think week 3 is a winnable matchup. They could potentially start the season 3-1. And at that point, that could set up your year for at least, again, a wild card spot.
The disrespect of saying the Bengals are a winnable matchup with our Bengals fan right here on the broadcast. You're saying the Bengals are a winnable matchup for Miami. I mean, gosh, even though
the Super Bowl hangover continues, who knows? I mean, they might be lackadaisical coming off that beatdown of the Dallas Cowboys. Am I right, Blake?
I wouldn't totally leave it out of the question, but I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I'll be at the game
that's
again,
week 3.
So.
We're on week 2 for what it's worth. Okay, well, let's talk about the Ravens side of things. The Ravens had an easy game. It's hard to really read much against the Jets. Joe Flacco revenge game did not really happen. You had a couple passing touchdowns by Lamar Jackson in that game. Devin Duvernay was a beneficiary. Rashad Bateman actually came down with one. I know Bateman was struggling with injuries all of last year, so it was good to see him out there. Duvernay, of course, hook 'em horns, Longhorns alum representing in the NFL. So happy to see he came down with 2 scores. What do you think of this Ravens team? Do you think that they are as good as advertised?
I think this is a huge prove-it game for the Baltimore Ravens, if anything. I think this is a team that could definitely be good. I definitely understand that. Lamar Jackson looked great last week, but again, it's Joe Flacco. It's the New York Jets. How much are we going to believe that? Is that really going to show what's going to happen the entire season? I mean, I can't really bank on it. this is a big game for them. We see a really, really good secondary in Miami with Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, these guys who I think are really talented. Javon Holland's a fantastic safety. We're going to see right now if Lamar Jackson can successfully pass the ball against a good defensive secondary. I think it's going to be a big deal. I think it's going to tell us a lot about the Baltimore Ravens this year. Granted, again, they're struggling with injuries. We already have Jawan James sent to the IR. They're starting tackle who's in replacement of Ronnie Stanley right now, who hasn't been healthy and still isn't a guarantee to play this week. Gus Edwards is still out. J.K. Dobbins is still questionable for the game. James Prochet is still hurt. Patrick Ricard, the starting fullback's hurt. Kyle Fuller just went to the IR. This is still an injury-riddled team all around. Marcus Peters isn't even healthy. So there is still a lot of question marks for the injuries of this team right now. And I do think that once fully healthy, this will be a very, very good team. But is this team capable of winning games with these injuries? And that's a big question mark for me right now, because this Miami Dolphins team has proven that they are capable of handling business, as of what we saw last week against the New England Patriots in a very, very solid win by the Dolphins. So I'm not leaving out the question of Miami coming in here and maybe giving Baltimore a run for their money. It wouldn't shock me. I mean, we're seeing Lamar Jackson yet again have to struggle with not having a lot of pieces around him and try to see if he can put some things together and score some points for this team.
Last year, if you recall too, the Dolphins and Ravens had a big matchup, and this was kind of the start of the Ravens' demise on their year. I believe it was a Thursday night game where they lost 22-10. In that game, it started, unfortunately, a meme for Lamar Jackson. The Dolphins basically ran Engage 8 that entire game, and it was an effective strategy. I'd be curious to see if the Dolphins, obviously new coach, different regime there in Miami, whether they would employ some of those strategies from the game last year. Obviously, you have similar personnel on this roster. You have improved offensive personnel if you're the Dolphins. Would you try and contain Lamar Jackson the same way? What do you think on that one, Kyle?
Well, it's interesting because Baltimore's offensive line is still kind of shit, which is actually, you can just crop that up as analysis for Baltimore for me. Like, yeah, Baltimore hasn't fixed the offensive line since the Miami game last year. Part of that is just Ronnie Stanley hasn't recovered yet. And before he had season-ending major injuries the last 2 years, he was on pace to be a Hall of Fame left tackle. And obviously missing him changes everything they do on the offensive line. So they haven't really fixed those problems yet, which is concerning, but it's not the end of the world for Baltimore. I said the same thing last year, and I feel like obviously Hollywood Brown is gone, but Baltimore's offense hasn't changed dramatically. Like Rashad Bateman is expected to be 1,000-yard receiver this year. Duvernay had 2 touchdowns last week. Like they have fine wide receivers who I'm sure their play is being elevated by having one of the better passers in the NFL in Lamar Jackson. And so I think that the Miami Dolphins defense, I'm interested to see what the game plan is, because obviously it's a new defensive play caller for the Dolphins. Do they run the same strategy as last year and how they match up against Baltimore? I'm not sure how that goes, and I'm interested to watch it because Miami's key to victory, as always, is forced turnovers. Miami averaged more points off turnover than any team in the NFL in 2019 and 2020. I don't know about 2021 stats, but they had a great defense, so I'm sure they were up there somewhere in the list. So obviously Miami's key is points off turnovers, especially with an offense that looks like it's not going to score a lot of points offensively. They need that Steelers treatment like last week, where their defense gets them at the bare minimum, like 13 points going into, or like, you know, a pick six, or setting them up inside the 25 or inside Baltimore territory with turnovers, because I could see this being a game where Miami's offense looks kind of, not going to say bad, but just kind of like they're just going in neutral and going through the motions of trying to run the scheme that they may be unfamiliar with, or maybe don't have the pieces to run, given the shortcomings of the Dolphins running game that I believe exist.
I still think that there is hope for the Miami Dolphins running game as they try and figure out this season. I think that would be the key to their season, and getting the running game as the essential core part of their offense. Because 2 in week 1 through 33 times, that's something that a Mike McDaniel offense isn't necessarily geared to. You would normally have your quarterback anywhere between 20 to 30 throws, usually 20, 25 on a good week. Hell, we saw it a couple of years ago in the NFC Championship game. Jimmy Garoppolo threw 7 times. Clearly, that would be the goal of this type of offense, to just dominate with your running game and your quarterback just make the timely throws whenever needed. In week 1, evaluating Tua's performance, there was some throws to be had that he missed, but obviously he made enough throws to get them the victory. So it was about a passing C-level performance from Tua. And I think as long as they continue to get those level performances from them, this Dolphins team can win. They can win on the backbone of a strong defense. They can run the ball enough. Maybe they start including Tyreek Hill a little bit more in the running game. That was something that McDaniel mentioned when they first acquired Hill. Can you use him like a Deebo Samuel type? And McDaniel said he was very much open to that possibility. Waddle can also do a little bit of that too. So I would bank on that becoming a bigger part of this offense as this team kind of figures things out. Like you said, first year head coach, it's going to be a learning process for all parties in that offense to get on board with this team. And I think that you're going against in week 1 too, for whatever unexciting level of offense they had, you're going against Bill Belichick, who still is a high level defensive mind, or ultimately does have control over that defense. So I suspect that he knew that the running game was going to be a focal point of the Miami Dolphins offense and geared in on that. Obviously, we know Belichick loves to take away the one thing that you want to do well, one thing you want to do best. That was the Miami Dolphins running game and the Mike McDaniel offense. They didn't really develop that much. I could see them having a little bit better of a breakout performance. Curious to see who more of the carries go to. Edmonds was the workhorse out the gate, but Raheem Mostert is slowly getting healthy, coming off of last year's injuries and last year's couple sets of injuries that he had with the Niners. So I would look for Mostert to become more involved as this continues. Let's get into prediction time. Blake, what do you think of this one?
Well, I like what you said overall. I do agree. I definitely think Raheem Mostert is definitely a guy that's starting to make a name for himself. I mean, last week, the Dolphins really didn't have much of a run game at all. I mean, Chase Edmonds had 12 carries for 25 yards. As a whole, the team averaged only 2.8 yards per carry on the ground this week. And that's a big concern for this team, because the Miami Dolphins are a team that has a very, very good secondary with Marlon Humphrey. If Marcus Peters can be healthy for this game, that would be huge, of course. Kyle Hamilton, the rookie safety, I know a lot of people are really, really high on. There's a lot of talent top to bottom on this team. Marcus Williams as well, their free safety. They have a lot of really, really talented guys who can win deep in coverage. And I think that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are going to have a time trying to handle with these corners and safeties for the Ravens, who are always so good and taking out these players from the game. So I definitely think that's going to be a big concern for Miami, is if you're able to find another weapon, maybe behind the line of scrimmage, to be able to help you. I agree. I think Raheem Mostert might need to be that guy. I think he would probably be the most impactful player on this Dolphins offense this week if the Dolphins are going to be having a chance to win this game, because you're going to need a guy behind the line of scrimmage. You're going to need a running back to be able to successfully run this football and force the Ravens to respect the run game, because if not, you're going to have a lot of problems getting the ball to your yak receivers or your deep threats, and that's going to be a big problem. So I think this is going to be a really fun game. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to take the Ravens to win this in a very close one.
All righty. I think I am going to go with the Miami Dolphins. I think they're going to improve to 2-0 this week. I just have a weird sense of faith with this team. I don't know. Every year there is going to be an upstart team. There is going to be a team that you don't look at in the playoffs and think that they have a shot at being there from the start of the season expectations. But the Dolphins, I really have a faith, can be that team this year. They've been on the cusp over the last few seasons. I think if they keep the core elements of that game plan from that Thursday night game they had last year defensively, again, the different regime, different coaches, but they still have that same personnel. That personnel gave the Ravens a lot of problem last year. Better offense. I think the running game is going to be improved this week. I think Tua is going to throw a lot less, and I think that that's going to be for them betterment of the team. So I'm going to go with the Dolphins to get that victory. I believe it's on the road. Yep, on the road. Again, 3.5-point underdogs. So I certainly with the points, I would say Dolphins too.
Well, I get to break the tie here a little bit. And unfortunately, my opinions on this are very mild. I'm going to say that Baltimore is the more talented roster. Baltimore is favored by 3.5 points. Therefore, it's more likely that Baltimore will win than Miami. So I'm going to take Baltimore with a very mild level of confidence. Like this is not a spicy take or spicy feeling on my part. This is very mild, leaning towards Baltimore to win by like a touchdown, which if any team is projected to win by a touchdown, it's football. Weird shit happens all the time. Maybe Miami wins the game, but I'm going to take Baltimore with a mild confidence.
All right, guys, we have another guest joining us this week. Jude. Blake has been on the podcast before. Blake, go ahead and tell the people where they can find you on social media.
I'm everywhere on social media. If you're interested in my Bengals content, which is what I do a lot, got my logo on my own t-shirt here. Follow me on Instagram at StripeHypeCincy, where I post all Bengals content on. But if you want more variety, my Twitter at BlakeJude714. I do pretty much every football there. I'm going to be doing a lot of betting stuff this season in football. I'm going to be keeping up with college football, NFL, all of that. So make sure you follow me on my Twitter for all of that content.
Check out Blake for all Bengals content, all sporting content, great draft analyst as well. Follow us on social media at Slumpbuster Podcast. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video, and comment about whatever we were talking about in this video. I don't know what it is. This is just going to be a general outro tag. Stay safe, happy, and healthy. Juju Talk Sports. Kyle Ledbetter here. We'll see you next time.